We are the region, obviously. There's hot spots in the state, and that's one of them. She comes from a little bit different view than somebody that's out in a very rural area. So that's the issue. And yes, you say July 1 versus July 4th, but actually the governor was talking in terms of we were shut down until June 30th, and then July 1 would be a possibility. And then the governor said July 4th, if you look at his, if everything goes well, we'd be open as a society. Well, I don't know if that's going to happen after listening to him yesterday, but yeah, I don't know that, but that's where we were coming from, Kelly. She just pulled that out of her hat late in our conversation about liability, and it turned everybody, the 300 ADs that were on there became very anxious at that moment.
I can understand that. And, you know, that's a broad, general, sweeping statement when you just talk liability. There's so many, you know, aspects to that. So that's why I was trying to figure out. I guess my concern or my thought is, where do you guys see your biggest? Do you see it through your biggest concerns? Do you see it through fans, through students, through parents, through coaches? Where do you guys see these big concerns as we come back? You know, I guess the most immediate or employees, but the most immediate is the sports piece of it, because that's, you know, that's the earliest. But where do you guys see that most immediate threat or that you're worried about?
I think the immediate. Sorry to go ahead, Dan.
Kelly, I'll jump in here. I think most of us have heartburn in terms of no matter whether it's athletics, whether it's the classroom, whether it's transportation, with the idea of social distancing. There is no way that we can social distance a classroom. We can talk about social distancing the classroom, but when you take kindergarten kids, there's no way you're going to keep their hands off one another. And there's no way that we have enough yellow buses and minibuses to socially distance and transport kids to school or to and from athletic events. That isn't going to happen. If we have to do that, we might as well not even be in business. The same can be said for school. You know, we can talk about coming to school every other day or every third day. Parents are going to be upset by that because they don't have childcare. You know, that's crazy. And so the issue becomes is how can we mitigate our negligence so we don't get into those suits if someone gets COVID-19.
And I want to echo what he just said. I'm going to use a word that I'm hearing. Do any of you have confidence that we can bring people back safely? Let me give you an example in that meeting last Friday. They were saying we would need to fog the football locker room in the morning. Kids would have to take everything home, and we would have to fog that after the game. I mean, there was stuff that I'd never even thought about, Dan, and I want you to talk to her. It was bizarre what was coming up. So the word I'm hearing is confidence.
Or lack thereof.
Right.
I think another current concern, if you're reading some of the guidelines that are coming from NFHS or CDC, if we need to follow those guidelines to have coverage, right now it's not very practical to think that we can even follow those for any type of workouts, let alone school or transportation or so on. Just looking at a July 1 date, we don't have the resources right now to be able to follow those guidelines and get anything accomplished from an athletic standpoint.
Kelly, Gary, I would ask, I mean, from an insurance aspect, what are we going to be required? I mean, would mask take the liability if we did everything we're supposed to do, if we had the resources, as Joel was talking about, if we all wore masks, if we all, you know, stayed out of locker rooms and they came directly dressed, would those things mitigate the liability to us? At what point do we have to show through a paper trail, whatever, to prove that we have done everything that they require by state mandate, and then it is what it is? Or do we need liability waivers? There's been all kinds of things talked about. The one thing that really brought a lot of I guess anxiety was that she said, well, you know, and it's true, liability waiver at the local level probably doesn't hold much weight. We just need we need to have a liability law created by the national government or the state government. Well, that hadn't happened yet. They're talking about it, but they haven't done it yet. So, you know, from an insurance aspect, what are you guys looking for?
Yeah, Gary, you want me to?
Sure. I think that first of all, you guys are the guys and gals. This is all you're asking the right questions, and what we would like to be able to help you with from the insurance side of it is when something does happen, which inevitably will, to make sure that we can defend you. So part of it is I don't think from a negligence perspective, I think you all are going to be prudent. And you're all going to have what somebody just called paper trail to say, this is our practice, this is what we're trying to do. But you're right, you cannot put boxing gloves or rings around kindergartners to keep them away from one another. That's just not going to happen. So when they are exposed, when something does go wrong, the issue is, can we defend ourselves? And that's true with everything from driver policies and everything else that we talk about. So we'll be working out of this meeting to provide some clarity for you about what those practices should be. There's no way under God's green earth you're going to get liability waivers from everybody coming into the stadium to watch a football game. That's just not practical. So I don't know. There could be relief. They've been talking about relief at the federal level from suits resulting from COVID-19, and whether that comes to fruition or not, God only knows. But I think what we need to do for you and what you need to do for your corporation is to do exactly what you're talking about. What are the best practices? What can we do? What can't we do? How do we make sure we're documenting what we're doing and making sure your carrier, when you do those types of practices, making sure we're all on the same page. When something does go wrong, you'll be okay. And that's what we need to do.
Thing that was suggested from a business standpoint was to make sure that all of the practices that we are adopting, or that paper trail, isn't just something that we're putting down on paper, but something we're asking the school board to adopt. So it's not our individual plan, but more so of the school's adopted plan. And that they said that should also help mitigate any individual liability too, but that's just something that was on a conference call, I think yesterday or the day before, that I attended.
I think it would be one of the best practices to have the corporation say, this is what we're doing. And again, the issue is adopting, but the issue is trying to do the best you can as leaders of the corporation to make sure to your best of your ability that's being implemented. So the things are being followed too. So to adopt a policy is a great step, but it also creates, if you're not implementing the policy as best you can, it also creates liability if you don't do that. So it's like having a driver policy that says we're not going to, nobody with a DUI or reckless driving can drive our buses, and somebody does. You know, that creates additional liability, so to speak. So we want to make sure that we're trying to do, we have the right policies that are reasonable, but the second thing we're trying to do is making sure we're trying to implement those too.
Has anybody together for the July 1 opening day? Have any of you guys taken anything to your boards? Now I've got Susan Trainer. She told me to tell you, Kelly, she's working with other attorneys firms throughout the state. She couldn't make this call, but she's going to have example of waivers. She's going to have a plan that they're working on. And she said she'd share that with you.
That'd be terrific. You know, a lot of our carriers are working on just some templates that you guys can work with your attorneys as well to make sure that they approve, you know, the language and things on the attorney side. But we're gonna try to send out some of those that you guys can give you a track to run on, I guess, a little bit. And I think more so for, you know, as they come back for the student athletes and for the coaches, and actually student athletes and parents. I don't know about the coaches, but student athletes and parents mostly. So that, I mean, those are, I think those will be key. But like I said, this is, you know, there's no magic bullet to keep you out of a lawsuit right now. Those anybody can bring those. But what we want to do is is we want to be able to defend you. So I think the policies and procedures that you put in place are going to be key. We will try to help you with those policies and procedures of things that, other folks are doing that we see could be helpful, and send those on when we do. One of the things that I guess, and maybe you guys have already thought about this, and this isn't a big deal or anything, but for your employees and staff, if they, if they do get sick on that, I've talked to quite a few of our comp carriers, and the consensus is if someone does come down with COVID, that we're turning in those claims as workers' comp. If they come in and say, hey, I've got it at school, and they, basically it's we're turning those in, and then they'll do their investigation just like anything else to see if they indeed did get it as a work-related injury. So it's not that those cases are not automatically excluded. They're not automatically going to be paid either. They're going to do their investigation. From what I understand, I've talked with a carrier that writes a lot of nursing homes that has been dealing with this more so than the schools have had to so far, because they've been closed. But there have been some cases that they paid. There have been many that they haven't as well, because it's so hard to prove where you pick that up. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there as a best practices as well, that if you do have somebody that comes, don't dismiss it as, oh, you could have got that anywhere. We want to turn those in and let the adjusters and the claims managers go ahead and adjust and investigate and do their due diligence to see if it would be a paid claim on that piece. Does that make sense to everybody?
Good.
Kelly, what I'm thinking for Tri-Central, what we need, we're going to follow the county, we're going to follow the state guidelines to a T of what they ask. I would like from you, and I know you've got different carriers, so it may not be the same, guidelines that you think we need to make sure we're going above and beyond, or at least covering with those guidelines so that we are covered by insurance. Do you think you'll be able to do that, or are we just going to send guidelines to you and then you'll okay them or not okay?
We can work with our carriers to give you the guidelines that they feel prudent. And like I said, we're going to give recommendations on this. This has opened my eyes in so many things, this whole situation, as I'm sure everyone. So nothing is like guaranteed anymore, but we will do our best to, we have those guidelines that, you would have your defense would be, such that they would be able to defend you the maximum of their ability, for sure. But yes, to answer your question, we'll work with all of our carriers to put those guidelines out. I know Selective I've sent it, the folks that are with Selective Insurance, they sent one out really early, and I'm guessing that they'll modify that and change that as times have, as things evolve here as well. And we'll really try to keep you updated on those situations as they arise. So it's as they come, we'll definitely send those guidelines out. But I think most of them are going to lean on, the CDC. They're going to lean on state and local, to follow those guidelines as well.
Our immediate need is we plan on letting teams start working out July 6th if everything goes as planned right now. So that's our first one, let alone how we're going to handle football games and those things. But immediately we need to know for July 6th, are we okay for weightlifting and workouts, inside, outside, those type things. So
I would recommend, you ask a great question, and I recommend it goes both ways. As you begin to do things, I would suggest you let us know what you're doing, number one. Number two, we'll give you from our perspective what the carrier, what specific direction we can provide you from our side of the table. And I think what Henriette's job is to help reconcile what you're doing and what we're saying, and how do we make sure we're pulling those things together where we don't have any screw ups.
No, that's a great point. Yeah. So if you are putting those guidelines together, send those to us. We'll take them to our carrier and get their feedback, and they may have things to add or subtract on that as well as work with attorney. I mean, there's some employment, practice attorneys and things that are just terrific on that. So, work with them as well on language that you can put in to protect you as well. And we'll do our best on our side to kind of be an intermediary as we can between the carriers and you, so that everyone, that's the big thing, Gary. I think Gary said transparency. That's the big thing, is we want to make sure that the carriers all understand what you're trying to do, and you understand what the carriers are looking for. So we want to make sure we keep that line of communication open.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Cal? And I'm hearing guys saying we're not going to go until July 6th. We're not going to go till, July 4th. Our buildings are closed till June 30th. On July 1, our buildings are open. Okay. The guidelines that the governor has given is you can have up to 30 people in a setting beginning at a certain date in June. So once our buildings are open, now I know some of us may be bigger in terms of the football team, but we're going to be within those guidelines at Frontier on July 1st. Why would you wait until July 6th? I don't understand your rationale. Enlighten me.
On ours, with July 6th, the main reason is with the custodial staff and the planning of redoing the gym floors and having everything ready. So we are honoring the moratorium. Even though Bobby Cox has done away with that, we're still continuing on with the moratorium, then starting after that.
So it's a local reason why.
Yes.
Okay.
And that, Dan,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the case in a lot of schools. They've chosen to honor the moratorium because parents already had vacations and so forth already scheduled. So
Thank you.
Hey, Kitch, can I add one thing on the workers' comp or the claims that staff claims, right? I just want to make sure y'all know that I totally agree that we need to turn, if somebody feels like they've been exposed to COVID-19 at work or in a work setting, right? Whatever it may be, then we need to make sure that we file those claims as workers' comp claims and let the carrier do their due diligence. But also, just so you know, at the same time, on your medical programs, obviously all COVID-19 testing and antibody testing is being covered right now, at least through the end of the month, through the end of May at 100%. All treatment is being mandated that people who are, if you have employees who are being treated for COVID-19 or the virus, they're covered at 100% right now with no copays, no out-of-pocket costs, at least through the end of May. So that may be extended, and it could be, but right now that's the rule. So between the medical plan and the workers' comp plan, we're going to have the claim surrounded, and we'll do, and we'll have to let the medical plan and the workers' comp carrier figure out who's on first there before they pay the claim. Concern I have, obviously, is about independent contractors, about folks that are not employees. You have a lot of coaches out there. For example, Kitch is a coach, a volunteer coach at West Lafayette. So, there also could be exposed, and that may be an opportunity for a waiver, to look at some sort of a waiver situation that allows us to make sure that we're okay, that we don't need to look, that coach accepts the responsibility. And by the way, they also probably need to sign something that they're going to follow the practices that are being recommended by the paid staff and by the corporation. So that may be something, Kitch, we want to put together as far as just kind of a suggested. We're not attorneys. I didn't sleep at the Holiday Inn last night, so I don't practice law. But we can give you some ideas that you might want to run by your counsel to make sure you're protecting yourself for those independent contractors.
Do you think that will help lessen any liability that we may have? I'm really concerned about the workers' comp. Do you feel like the better documented our plans are for our staff, that will help with those claims?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That all you can do. We live in the real world here. All you can do is to adopt good policies, try to implement the good policies and follow them, And if you're doing that, you've been prudent. The issue for you is, are you negligent? Right? Are you negligent as leaders of the corporation? Is the corporation negligent? Is the school board negligent? Are they ignoring the reality? And so, I mean, are they telling everybody go back to what you're doing before? Well, you have a problem with that if you do that, because you can be easily perceived as being negligent. And therefore you're opening yourself for the liabilities. So we're trying to be conservative, but not so damn conservative we can't get anything done. So we have to walk a middle road here of the world we're living in. And so we want our kids to play football. We want our kids to get together and be able to have an education in the fall. And there will be risk involved, but let's make sure there are risks we're aware of, and we're trying to manage those risks.
Quick question. You were talking about if we could get our policies to you. Is there some type of timetable? Like, if we were to turn it in and then get your feedback, coming up on July 1, when should we have that? Obviously, as soon as possible, but.
Yeah, and I know that everybody's kind of waiting to see what the next step will be. It's if they will, waiting on the governor's actions and things. To get feedback from most of our carriers, they are super quick to turn around things on those. So, I mean, if you could give us a week, that'd be great. I would think that, that would be a fair piece of, something for us to get them over there and them to get with their counsel and then to get back. And I can probably turn it around quicker, but, a week would probably just to give myself a little cushion so I don't say I can turn around in a day. But would that be a fair amount of time?
I think for us soups, what we're going to do, I was listening, we're going to have to keep taking this going, start in June, get ready for the 1st. Then we're going to have to come back and add, the difference policy must be board approved guidelines. They're guidelines. So you keep using the word policy, and I think you're right. Has anybody seen anything from Neola on any of this, by the way? I haven't.
We've adopted a couple new, but it's mainly broader, Chris, as far as pandemic related, and allowing superintendents the autonomy to make emergency decisions during a pandemic. So we did pass a few of those at the last couple meetings.
Okay.
Be happy to share those if you need them.
Thank you.
Chris, they came out with a special release where they added COVID-19 to their diseases that, and I can't remember the policy, but we read that in May and June, or in April and May, and we've adopted it. We adopted our May meeting, so I can send it to you too.
Okay, thanks. Do you work with Ryan or Tom McKay?
Actually, Bernie
Oh, Bernie?
Grazier.
Yeah.
Kitch, are you familiar with that, what they're talking about?
With Neola? Yeah, that's kind of their governing, or the.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, but with the policy they're talking about, have you seen that?
No.
Okay. Can we have is it possible to get a copy of that?
Yep, I'll send it to Kelly if that's all right.
If you can, Kelly, if you can give me the ability to share my screen, I could pull it up right now for you.
You're asking a lot out of me here on technology.
Remember, he went to Purdue, Steve.
Do what?
He went to Purdue,
Good point. Good point.
I know you did too, didn't you?
Al Tiller didn't teach me anything about technology.
There you go. I clicked it, said multiple people can share screens, but will that do it?
I don't know. Let me see. We'll see.
Also, as I hope it won't. It's giving me a countdown. The one apparently I chose the wrong one. Speaking of my technology, so I only had 40 minutes on here. So if it kicks us off, I think we got till about 8 after. So are you able to share it there, Dan?
Let me see.
Okay.
Well, he's working on that. Anybody? I've heard the issues, which I think are terrific. Classroom, transportation, athletics, field trips, all those types of things. I'm assuming all that's just off the table right now. Nobody's doing anything like that.
Right.
Okay. Are there other concerns about exposures or insurance coverage for things you're doing? I think the liability issue actually, I know it sounds very complex, but I think it's actually fairly simple. You all have contracts in place right now, and there is no, for general liability, to my knowledge, and I think Kitch, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no exclusion for anything virus related or negligence that results from that. So I think you're covered. The issue is we want to make sure that we're documenting and we're doing all the things we need to do of communicating back and forth and being transparent to make sure that our carriers are prepared for what you're going to face.
Kitch, I can't pull it up right now. I'll send it to you. I'll email it to you.
Okay. Terrific. Yeah, sorry about that. Technology on my side. I just got yelled at by actually Gary's daughter for putting us on the wrong one. So I said, I'm getting a countdown. What's going on here? So
Yeah,
is there anything, Joel, you got something?
yeah, just a quick question. I know that schools are closed through the 30th, but are all schools actually going to open July 1? I mean, I know that's still kind of if the governor says it's okay, that's great, but then the county has to say it's okay, and then the local school board and superintendent has to give their blessing as well. Is there confidence that all schools are going to, in fact, open then?
We're going to open for athletics July 1. We're doing summer school virtually this summer. We're not doing an in-person summer school. We may do a jump start in August and a kindergarten boot camp in August, depending on what happens between now and the rest of the summer. I think all of us figured out really quick back in March, things can change quickly. Mm-hmm. And what seems like is going to happen 2 months from now may not happen 2 months from now. So,
right. I have a suggestion, and maybe it's naive, okay? So, but my suggestion would be, I'm thinking about all my kids were involved in music, right? They sing and all the, theater and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, they think singing is one of the worst things you can do for the transfer of the virus, right? Because you're projecting and talking and all those types of things. It's hard to sing with a mask on. I'm wondering if your music folks or other people, other specialty folks like music, if any of their national associations are publishing best practices of how to do choir, of how to do band, of how to do those group activities. How about the science side with labs? Are there professional associations that they're associated with that can give us some direction as to how to do those things, those activities, those group activities safely?
That's a good point. Unless everyone is
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Chris.
I mean, we can check. And back to Joe's question, I'm going to use that word confidence. Do I have the confidence on July 1 that I can bring people back safely? Right now, we're planning on it. I'm having trouble getting supplies, cleaning supplies, fog machine, all that stuff. My custodians will be back, all of them, by July 2nd. Or excuse me, June 2nd.
That brings up
July 1, I'm opening up.
That brings up another great point about PPE. So do your folks have the right, are you ready with PPE to give your teachers and to give your custodians and other people that are public facing, kid facing, the right protection? What is that? So
we ordered N95 masks and we have them in stock. We did it early when Jennifer suggested early on her calls that you may want to try to look at PPE. It may be a reach out there, but I felt like if we wait till midsummer, you're not going to get them. And we went to pick them up the other day, and they asked us, do we want to take them all, or do we only want to take some? And we said, we'll take them all. And she said, good answer, because I don't think they're going to be available midsummer. We have those. We have shields that have been ordered, face shields that have been ordered. We have the gowns that have been ordered. We've got the gloves. So we're looking at sneeze guards for our buildings in terms of our central offices. We've had some discussions about classrooms, but how teachers are going to have to get up and move away from their desks. So you almost have to put them in PPE. You can't do the desks. So I think we're there. I think we're there, Gary.
Okay.
So we've cleaned. We took the stance that cleaning and maintenance is essential services. So we continued to clean all along. And we have a cleaning company that has come in. Now we're doing a renovation in our high school, and it's dirty as heck right now. But we'll clean that before we start school. But we also jumped out there early on during flu season and got some wipes that are surgical wipes that we use to clean surfaces with, and got some of those. Our RN, our nurse, suggested that we do that for flu season more than anything else, and it was an advantage to us later that we had those when this all hit.
I appreciate that, Gary. I know we're getting ready to get cut off in about 15 seconds, so
Okay.
I appreciate everybody coming on. I really do. I'll try to put some of these things together. If you have additional questions and want to call me directly,